It was very surreal to see the town asking for accountability and for cops to be arrested or convicted or to give up their badges, some kind of accountability, and then at the same time being with Angelique and seeing her being harassed.
Welcome to Bitch Talk. I'm your host, Erin.
And I'm co-host Ange, aka Captain Party.
And for more than 11 years, the show has celebrated underrepresented voices in pop culture and beyond.
But not in the snore kind of way, which is why our listeners and followers have graciously voted as Best of the Bay, Best Podcast on 48 Hills for 3 years in a row. Three-peat, bitches.
If you like what you hear, follow us on Instagram and check out our website, Bitch Talk Podcast, and rate us wherever you listen to podcasts.
We're begging you to judge us. When does that ever happen? Oh, you're not going to say anything?
Oh, what'd I say?
Yeah. Yeah. Okay, on that note, on with the show. Clink. What's up, Bitch Talkers? We are still here at South by Southwest 2025, and today we're bringing you two documentaries about the beauty and the strength of a mother. First, we have MOLA, and then we have Uvalde Mom. And per the usual, we're going to be joined by our honorary bitch, John Wildman of Films Gone Wild. Enjoy. We're here at South by Southwest 2025 talking to the directorial team / father and daughter, Yangzom Brown and Martin Brown. Welcome to Bitch Talk.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll start with you, Yangzom. Can you introduce our audience to your film?
This is a film called MOLA, a Tibetan tale of love and loss. And MOLA means grandmother, and it's about my grandmother. She was a Tibetan nun. And my father and I, we filmed her for like about 6 years, her everyday life, her, like her practices, the rituals she does. And we felt we wanted to film it to keep her story alive because she was such a special person. She became a nun when she was 5 years old and always stayed a nun and practiced Tibetan Buddhism. And so when she suddenly said, when she turned 100, that she wants to return to Tibet and die there, that gave the twist in our film. And we knew that is something we're going to cover and also film. And it was just like, it became like more part of death, like preparing for death, what she always did in Tibetan Buddhism, and then deciding to return home where she was born. Yeah.
This was a 6-year process in terms of filming, but when was the point that you both looked at each other and said, we need to document this? And what did that process look like?
Yeah, in 2014, I was considering to make a movie, and Yangzom said maybe 1 second later that she had the same idea. So in one way, we still don't know who had the first idea. But anyway, we discussed about it also with my wife, Mola's daughter. And we decided then to make this movie. But in the beginning, it was more the idea, my idea at least, to make a movie about her spirituality. She's a Buddhist nun, as Yangzom said. And she has a very deep knowledge of Tibetan Buddhism. And I was very fascinated because she starts at 3 o'clock in the morning. She started at 3 o'clock in the morning with her rituals. She got up, washed herself, and then she prayed for about 3-4 hours in the morning and again in the afternoon. So I was very much fascinated by this attitude and by this spirituality. But later on, Yangzom said correctly, it's difficult to make a film about spirituality only. Sometimes she also told me, you are an anthropologist, you can't make an ethnographic movie. So we had discussions, of course, and that's good, because then slowly something developed. And as Yangzom mentioned this moment when Mola said, I want to go back to Tibet, this was a new dramatic moment, in the whole process.
And I mean, we started in 2014 and we just finished now in 2024, end of 2024. So the post process took a long time because we were so close to the material that we suddenly didn't know how to put all the things together. And I started editing because I understand Tibetan so what they're saying, and I was the only one who also knows editing in my family. So I started editing on Premiere. I taught myself a little Premiere because I know Final Cut, but not Premiere. So I started it, and then I realized, or we both realized, we need to find other people to help us to do all this. And so we found a great editor in Switzerland, and then he started it, and then from there we went to Union Editorial in LA, and so Jim Haygood took over and Catherine LeBlanc, and so that's how, so without them we wouldn't be where we are today. So it was good to have this outside look into a family and not being so close and not even knowing MOLA. So
it also took so long because of COVID, of course. That was one reason. And then when MOLA passed away finally in Switzerland, we were thinking to fulfill her last wish. Actually, her last wish was, and she said, when I die, I would like that you bring at least my ashes to Tibet. So that was again a very complicated process, because how to send ashes to China, which actually was not interested in our movie, certainly we assumed. So therefore it was a very complicated process again to send the ashes to Tibet. And finally we also took a part of the ashes to Nepal, where made the necessary rituals. So this also took quite a long time.
I'm glad you brought up the editing process, because it's always difficult to edit. Everything is precious to you, every scene, but you have an added connection because these are her final moments, so everything is so special for you. So were there some scenes that you really fought to keep with the editors, or some that unfortunately made it on the cutting room floor that you want to talk about now?
There were so many scenes which landed in the cutting room floor, but
maybe you can mention this scene in the beginning, right in the beginning, where we had big discussions.
This one scene in the bathroom where her hair gets cut, and she kind of like jokes with Martin behind the camera, but then she also says, "You always film me, and I don't like it, and you tell me to come here and go
and
there
go up and down.
So, but then she's also joking at the same time. But it was that was like something my parents felt they don't want to have it in there because it was so personal also, and a conflict.
Because also she said something very typical for the Buddhists. She said when somebody passed away, his consciousness lingers around, and if there are photographs and films, it's not good for the consciousness of the deceased person. So in one way we understood this, but when she said it, she also laughed, and we realized it's...
Yeah, and plus she said to us many times, I agree to be filmed, but we never had it on video. So my parents felt like, this is so bad, like also because of the Tibetan community and, like the pressure my mother would get. And so that was a discussion we had, and we took it out once, then we put it back in. So, and, like the nice thing about Jim and also with Samir was they were like very open for discussions and not just like, okay, it has to be in there.
But you're right, the process of choosing what to show and what not to show is a very difficult one. And there are scenes where I'm unhappy that they are, or not so happy that they are not in, but we have a limit of 82 minutes, so you can't show each and everything. But altogether, I think we really like the present.
Which scene did you miss?
For instance, when what I mentioned before, that we sent the ashes to Tibet, and the people there in Tibet, they filmed this process, and they made 1,000 holy figures with the ashes and the clay, and they put it in a very nice place in there. But then we didn't include it, also maybe because of respect towards these people, because they are at least in a country which is occupied by China. So that was one reason, certainly. Another aspect, I feel, maybe we didn't show it well enough, but in the brochure which we published, this is taken up. There are, in the film, you see also this some conflicts between Sonam, the daughter, and the mother, and this is normal, and we feel it's good. But they also did a lot of things together, and if you look at the movie, you don't see so many of these scenes. When they work, for instance, when they cook together, it's not so interesting. It's therefore maybe we didn't include it. But there are always questions. Should we put it in or not? But altogether, I feel it's okay.
Well, you feel the love, especially, I'm not going to give it, but that ending scene. Anyways, go on. It's just so sweet. It's so cute.
You're a father-daughter co-directing team. I want to know, I mean, this whole film is about relationships. So what did you two find out about each other that maybe you didn't know going through this process? And then how did your relationship either grow or develop with your grandmother during this process? And mother-in-law.
We realized, but we already knew it, that we have hard-headed.
Yeah.
Right? That we are hard-headed.
We're very similar. Yes. No. My mom said, "Thank God I don't have to be with you two together."
She's like, I'm going to go paint.
I know. She's like, "Great, you guys go."
I'm going to do art.
We
She
survived.
said this morning, "Have fun, guys." I'm going to paint. No, we survived, and we're very similar in many things.
That's true.
So that helps, and we can be disagreeing and still work together. We found that out. But it is sometimes hard because he wouldn't listen to me and I wouldn't listen to him. So that's why outside people are good too, to separate us. And spending time with MOLA, I mean, the most time, because I live in LA, and so the most time Martin was filming, and it became just a daily thing almost, where the camera was pointed at her and my mother. And it was sometimes, I remember Sonam, my mother or your wife, she eventually got annoyed by it a little bit because she felt, can you just maybe one day not point the camera towards us? You do it again, like it's a repetition. And then I would say, this wasn't that great. Can you do it again? The good thing is with my grandmother, she does her prayers in the morning and evening, so we can repeat every day if it's not good or we're missing something. Her clothing, what she's wearing, is always in red color. So even if it's a little different, it looks like the same. So it doesn't feel like she changed so much, and that helped a lot for the scenes we edited.
And what concerns me, I mean, I always loved my mother-in-law. It sounds funny because there are many jokes, isn't it, about the relationship. But I really loved her, and I have to say, I got to know her much better now by doing this film, especially her, what I mentioned before, the spirituality. I started to get interested in the text she read every day, every morning, and I let them translate some of them because my Tibetan is not good enough, not at all, because it's a complicated language, it's a religious language. So I translate some of the text, and I realized that there are wonderful passages in these texts, which I also included some of them in the brochure, because that was also a discussion, how much of the spirituality of these texts can we include in the movie. Some are included, but decent, not too strongly. But this was really a wonderful experience for me to realize what actually is her spirituality and what is she reciting every day. And actually, she was not only reciting it, but she was also living it. For instance, the compassion for all the living beings. She didn't only make it theoretically or philosophical in her mind, made up in her mind, but she really did it. Whenever somebody needed her help, she was open. Some people came to her place. They stayed there 3-4 months and stayed there. She couldn't speak very much with them, but they felt released, and they are still telling these stories that she was so kind to accept them.
Yeah, Martin, you're also a subject in this film and in some of my favorite scenes. It's really so touching to see you with MOLA. So can you talk about how you decided, okay, I'm going to go on camera for this scene or not? And also you took a big part of the burden on your shoulders by being in charge of this visa, this race against time to get her visa.
I mean, it was quite obvious that if this is your question, that I have to do the recording, the filming, because Yansom was in LA, and I bought a camera, a very new one, which is not more existing, unfortunately. It's a Samsung NX1. Nobody knows it nowadays. that Samsung is creating a camera. But
it's also about why you are in front of the camera. What was the decision?
When you decided to go on camera.
Yeah, that was the idea actually of a friend who advised us, who told us to do the film. But then we felt this is a good idea, and more or less good. I don't like to be actually on stage.
Yeah,
but
you didn't
anyway.
want to, but it's kind of part of it because he was writing those emails to the ambassadors and to get like the visa for MOLA, and so instead of having voiceover, the decision was made, let's have you type it and film you, right? And then there's a few little parts where we see you with MOLA, with watching TV, and they're more like that. So that's when he just put the camera in a corner, pointed it to them, and just sat there, either at breakfast or watching TV.
I did this a few times.
A few times,
For instance,
yeah.
in the old people's home where I feed her. You
Yes,
know,
exactly.
This
That was also a tripod, and
also,
you with her alone. So it was it's very intimate because we didn't have any foreign people filming her, and that's why it was so open and raw. It's like when I was there and filming the mornings when she woke up, I would sleep on the floor with her on a mattress, so I don't miss, because I ask her, when do you get up? Like 4? Like, you know, she's like, I wake up when I wake up. So I was like, okay. So I was sleeping beside her. Remember twice I did that? And then she would wake up at like 3:30. I'm like, oh my God. I had to like fast, like get up, put the camera on and film, and then just have that whole morning process she has. Yeah.
It's not so much a question, and we're wrapping in just a minute, but thank you for including a lot of food shots and making food and the process of that. And she was eating momos, right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Ange and I have
The vegetarian.
I've been to Nepal, and I
nice.
miss a really good momo. So thank
And
you
the
for
sauce.
capturing. Yes. So, but do you want to talk about including those portions of her life where she is in the kitchen or family's in the kitchen and cooking?
Well, cooking was a big part, and that's when the family comes together. It's like making momos. That was something where I learned making momos, and then my mother and my grandmother, my brother, we would all, you less, but you would film or do something else. But it was just kind of like this beautiful time where everyone comes together and cooks together. And you can see that also when we did the Tibetan New Year's cookies. That's also something we do together. And then sharing stories. And
I like this scene to take up
yeah.
where they make these cookies, you know, this so-called kapse, where she speaks about, where MOLA speaks about her adventures, you know, with men, you know. It's really sweet, you know, when she starts to tell this story that actually, as a nun, you shouldn't. But then she laughed, and men tried to approach her and to catch her, and I think it's a very nice scene. Yeah.
And food is important, or was always important in our family. And I think food, and then it's in Tibetan culture. Culture is important because everyone comes together.
Yeah,
that's what it is.
Yeah, and that's also one of the scenes, you know, where they work together, Sonam and MOLA, and this happened very often, that they cooked together, made momo and made these kapses. That was really a normal daily activity. Yeah. Sometimes MOLA, she lived actually in the second floor in our house. She cooked by herself from time to time, but very often she was also coming to our place. Yeah. She was very independent. Until 99 to 100, she was very independent. Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, thank you for sharing her with us. It
Thank
was
you.
such a touching, beautiful film. Again, we're talking about the documentary MOLA, screening at South by Southwest. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Also for your interest in the movie. Thank you.
Thank you to our Squabble bitch Harmony Fraga and our Denial is a River bitch Annie Tabora Kakula for supporting this episode.
And we're back on Bitch Talk and FilmsGoneWild.com. My name is John Wildman, the editor-in-chief of Films Gone Wild. With me is Aaron Lim and Angela Tabora from Bitch Talk, and we are at South by Southwest 2025 in Austin, Texas. On this segment, one of the most infuriating documentaries you're ever going to watch, at least for us. We've already been commiserating over this. The film is Uvalde Mom. We have with us Arianzi Prado, the director, and the subject, Angelina Rose Gomez. Welcome to the show, both of you.
Thank you
Thanks
for having us.
Thank you.
We always start the segments by having our filmmakers introduce the audience to the film. They haven't seen it yet, so please do the honors.
Yes. So Uvalde Mom, it's about who's here with us today. And during the Robb Elementary mass shooting in May of 2022, where almost 400 law enforcement officers stood outside for over an hour, Angeli took matters in her own hands and ran inside the school and rescued her 2 children. Someone filmed her with her phone, and that video went viral. Angeli started to speak out. She was in a lot of ways a whistleblower, letting us all know that police just stood around waiting, and then she began to get retaliation from that. So the film is a personal portrait of Angeli and what her life has been like ever since, as well as growing up in Uvalde and her past. It's one of many, many stories in Uvalde, one that I'm honored to tell, and that I hope inspires people to continue to talk about this tragedy.
Your story is a roller coaster, and there was a lot of press, false accusations, but also truth through some of it. How did you find the trust in your director in terms of telling this story?
Well, actually, when everything was fresh, I cut off all media. I even had to move in the process to just eliminate myself from the light. So when Ana Yancy found me, I wasn't no longer doing interviews or anything. But the fact that, like, when I had already met another director that wanted to do a film with me, but I didn't feel comfortable with him. So when Ana Yancy came, I'm like, oh, I already talked to another director. I'm just not up for it. And she's like, well, let me just get to know you. I just want to know you, your kids. And when she started getting to know us so well, her trust just gained instantly. So,
yeah, I did want to talk about that process of you two gaining trust in each other, and also opening up your family and your sons to be filmed, who are adorable. I love your family, your mother's energy, just the whole thing. It's such a beautiful part of the film. But how did they open up to the idea of being filmed? Your boys, your mom, because they weren't prepared for this either. And how did you gain their trust?
Yeah, it was definitely a process. So when I started filming, it had only been a couple of months after the shooting. So it was still very raw. The community was very raw. And yes, I came in as a filmmaker to tell a story, but for me, it was really important to remember they had just gone through this tragic moment, right? And so I remember having a conversation with Angeli and just saying, like, I'm a stranger. You don't have to trust me, but can you please give me the chance to earn your trust? And I think that's where really, like, our relationship started. And first it was with Angeli, then I met her mom, and it was really just a process. And then I eventually, after a few months, started to film with her kids and her whole family. And, again, rightly so. They had just gone through this really intense tragedy, and I was very aware of just kind of going at their own pace.
There's so much in this film, and one, and you could have made like 3 or 4 films out of this film, because it could be just an indictment on Texas and Dallas. I live in Dallas, Texas, and so I think any film ever made can be an indictment on Texas because Texas just sucks. But it could have been a forensic study of what happened in Uvalde. And there have been some TV programs that have kind of done that, but you could have delved into that, and it could have been just a top to bottom, just a portrait, of this amazing woman right here. And by the way, and I oftentimes tell our listeners, because this is audio and not video, what's going on visually. And Angeli has a killer pantsuit on right now. Thank you. But so when you're gathering footage, when you're gathering interview stuff, when you're getting other stuff to support it, you get into the editing bay and you go, holy crap, what is my movie? And so I would love for you to talk about that process, because again, like I said, you deftly hit on all those subjects, and yet we don't have a 9-hour movie. So talk about what you did.
Sure. So For me, I started with the idea of telling Angeli's story, right? Because it's not just about what happened the day of the shooting, but it's also about her life growing up in Uvalde and her history with the criminal justice system and how it has failed her and many people. So I saw this parallel of systems failing folks in Uvalde, and then I wanted to know why. So then I went and did research on the history, which the film goes into the racial divide that's been in Uvalde for decades. And so I started laying out her story and then looking at ways in which we could make sense of it by supporting it with the past, by supporting it with what was going on in the town at the time, because it was very surreal to see the town asking for accountability and for cops to be arrested or convicted or to give up their badges, some kind of accountability, and then at the same time being with Angeli and seeing her being harassed, right? So like that juxtaposition, like I wanted the audience to experience that as well, like the intimacy of her personal story, but then also the macro of what was going on in the town. It was challenging to layer the film that way. But again, like our guide was always coming back to Angeli, right? Like coming back to her story. And her story lended itself to it because it had so many endpoints with history, with her grandfather being the first Latino chief of police of Uvalde. So there were all these little points of entrance that allowed us to go macro into the history of Uvalde, the current state of Uvalde at the time, and then keep it personal about Angeli.
And then, Angela, I want to talk to you because I thought about this watching the film too. I represent a lot of filmmakers, and I always laugh about how when I have them like on a red carpet, the difference between their very first interview on a red carpet versus their 9th interview on the red carpet is night and day. Because as they go along, they edit themselves and they go, "Oh, I don't have to speak so long about that. I can do that." And so I'm watching the footage. Of your first interviews versus latter interviews, and you're clearly kind of going through that same process because people are asking the same questions over and over again a lot, and your sense memory is recalling more as you go along as well. And then, so you're used to seeing yourself on TV, these different things, whatever, but a documentary is very different than that. Right, and a documentary, has, as Aaron and Angela have talked to you about seeing your family and seeing you in this portrait. So talk about from your sense of, one, seeing yourself on the nightly news of this, or CNN or whatever the hell it was, and then seeing what Anse had put together here. Talk about that.
So. At first, like the first interviews, I was very angry. It was really fresh. So, like in my first interviews, you do see I'm very angry or I'm talking really fast or I can't even catch my breath. But when I just wanted everybody to know from beginning to end, because people were upset about it and I just didn't understand why they were upset with me, like from my community. But then when Aniansi put it all into the documentary and the first time I watched it, I was like, oh my God, this is my life. Like finally someone didn't make it look surreal, or like they just put it all in there, like from born to like my mistakes to coming across those mistakes, and then again the shooting, my school, how everything played out with my family, my sons, how everything they've gone through was also in there. So I think she just really hit the whole pointer of my life. But I do believe we left a lot of good things out still. We still have a lot that we could have really put in there, but we just didn't have all the time.
For the 9-hour version.
Yes.
Well, I want to talk about one of the great things that's in this documentary and lighten it up. Your cousin, Riance.
Riance.
I love your cousin so much, and
yes.
I love the support that they give you, and I just one of the best characters in this film. Mm-hmm. So can you talk about your cousin?
Okay,
let's give him flowers.
Me and my cousin, we've actually been together where we see each other on a daily since we were 10 going to school. But now that we're older, we're like together 24/7. We work at the same place, like we are together. So I'm really thankful to have him, and I'm very blessed because at the beginning of this, the harassment, the ugly comments, the ugly treatment, from the community, from people that I thought were my friends or family too, he's the only one like, no, girl, you are not going to let them bring you down, Angeli. Like, don't let them bring you down. Like, he talks like that. Like, he just like recollects me to like, feel good about yourself. You're amazing. Like, don't let these people bring you down. Like, and don't cry, because big girls don't cry. He always puts on that song, and like he just gets me into where I need to be, instead of I was in a real depression. So like I remember like I started kind of going down, playing with drugs and stuff, and he was like, this is not you, like you're just depressed, like this is not who I love, you're not the person I love, like I love you, so you need to like bubble out of this. So he's like my big support, like everyday support. And my sons really count on him. Like they're like, Isaac, if my mom's having a bad day, as soon as you get in the car, she's like already bubbly, y'all are jamming, dancing. So yeah, he takes me out of that uncomfort zone.
I know you didn't ever plan on being on TV, but that's the reality show that we need.
Yes.
Is you and your cousin. I would watch.
Yes.
Yes. So the three of us, we drove into Texas from New Orleans, and I feel like as soon as we crossed the border, I think collectively we're just like, fuck Greg Abbott.
Yeah.
Like we'll just start by saying that.
We did.
It was just like, okay, well, we're going to Austin, which is cool, but fuck that guy.
Yep.
Anyways, so I just want to say, what is, like, this is all about the case for gun control. Is there anything that we should have on our radar, anything you want our listeners to follow and support in the coming days, years, etc.?
We actually have some media pages, right, as well, that they could support too and follow and see what's going on and update from us. And also, like, we're trying to, I have a Fierce Dead Mothers, like little group of friends that I met in a foundation that they had at first. Like, they don't have it right now, but we are still friends and we keep in touch. So she is on your side with that. She totally agrees. She hates it. And, but yeah, we're trying to find supporters we're going to try to put some money together to support people like against gun violence, or women that have been battered, things like that. So whenever I get more detail on that, I will keep y'all informed. And I will be keeping up with y'all's podcast now too.
Awesome.
All right, again, the title of the film is Uvalde Mom. Again, screening at South by Southwest here in Austin. We've had with us the director, Anyansi Prado, and the participant, the main focus of this darn film, Angeli Rose Gomez. It's been really great having you two here.
Yes,
Thank you.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us on today's show. You can find more information about this episode in our show notes.
If you're missing us, you can visit us at bitchtalkpodcast.com to sign up for our newsletter and buy us a cup of coffee.
Did you know we're also on the radio? You can find us at bff.fm.
And lastly, rate and subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. All the cool bitches are doing it.
This podcast is a proud member of the BFF.FM podcast network. Learn more at podcast.bff.fm.
BFF.FM, best frequencies forever.